as we head into the new year, we're going to be seeing some new rules concerning rentals, some new reforms as well coming into effect. And to discuss those things with us, we have on the line Shannon Franssen. Shannon is the interim coordinator of the Coalition of Housing Committees and Tenants Associations of Quebec. Good afternoon, Shannon.
Good afternoon.
How are you today?
Doing pretty good, yeah, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you very much, and to you as well. Now, what do these new rules and reforms mean to the average renter in the province?
So what we'll see, first of all, what has happened in the month of December is that the new rules or the new regulation for calculating your annual rent increase has changed. So there used to be a very complicated formula for calculating the annual rent increase that your landlord was allowed to apply. And what CAC has done is to simplify that calculation, but unfortunately, simpler doesn't mean fairer for tenants. So with the new calculation that will be coming into effect, we can expect to see the trend of historically high rental increases continue for the next couple of years at least. And that's really unfortunate because the CAC government had an opportunity here to reform that regulation and they really missed it. So unfortunately, it's something that's not very fair for renters. So
what are some of the parameters that are being used to calculate rent increases then?
So the main parameter and the one that renters should really be aware of is that the calculation is largely based on inflation. Unfortunately, inflation, the consumer price index in particular, is a big chunk of that is the increase in housing. So what we see here in this way of calculating the rental increase that's permitted is kind of an inflationary spiral because the amount that your landlord is allowed to increase your rent depends on how much the rents in general have gone up. And that's very dangerous because rents right now are exploding across Quebec, and particularly in Montreal. So we can expect to see the amount that your landlord increases your rent be historically high again this year.
Now, what protections do renters have as far as rent increases are concerned? Of course, you can always appeal to the regime, but is there anything else that a renter can do?
Yeah, that's right. You can refuse your rent increase. So if you think that your landlord is putting up your rent much more than they are allowed, then you should take the opportunity to refuse the increase. If you refuse the increase, your landlord will have to either negotiate with you or bring your case to the TAL. And you are allowed to stay in your apartment as the case is going through the system. So it's an important thing for tenants to realize that they can refuse that increase and negotiate with their landlord. Also, tenants can go and see their local housing rights committee for help with this process and to get a better idea of what the regulations say is a reasonable rent increase.
So there are advocates in just about every neighborhood then that can help out tenants.
Yes, that's right. A lot of tenants don't realize that, but in almost every neighborhood across Montreal, there's a housing rights committee. And that's a community organization staffed with people who will help you understand what your rights are and advocate for your rights with your landlord.
Now, along with these reforms and increases and all that sort of thing, we also hear of eviction notices coming soon in 2026. What can you tell us about that?
So what happens at this time of year, especially for tenants who where their lease comes due in July, so July 1st. So if you have signed a lease that renews every July 1st, your landlord has until the end of December, so has until today, to send you an eviction notice if they want to take the apartment back. Unfortunately, most tenants don't realize that there are very few reasons that a landlord can evict you. So rental law in Quebec really protects you from being evicted. So if you do receive an eviction notice, it's important that you not accept it right away, and make sure that your landlord is doing this in a fair way.
Now, are we seeing this in specific neighborhoods, or is it just happening like right across the board?
Well, unfortunately, what we've seen right across the board in Montreal and all across Quebec over the past few years is that rents have really just skyrocketed. Much, much more than we would expect if all landlords were following the rules. So what we can conclude from this is that some landlords are not following the rules. Some landlords are unfairly or illegally evicting their tenants and then jacking up the rent for the next tenant. Landlords are not allowed to do this. And so we do expect that across the board, across all neighborhoods, some tenants will receive unfair eviction notices. It's really important that they know how to advocate for their rights if that's the case.
So exactly what is that? What's the single most important piece of advice you could give to a renter now as we're heading into the new year?
Yeah, the advice I would give to renters is if you receive an eviction notice, don't accept it. Go and see your Housing Rights Committee, find out if it's a fair reason or not. And when you receive your notice for your annual rent increase, don't accept that right away either. Find out what the calculations say, what the regulations say about what's permitted, and once again, your local Housing Rights Committee can help you with that.
All right. And Shannon, is there anything I didn't touch on that perhaps you'd like to mention just before we say goodbye?
Well, I think another important thing for renters to understand is that the CAQ government in particular, we as we've been following their changes to regulations over the last couple of years, we can see that they have a kind of orientation or an ideology to stack the cards against renters and for landlords. So this is why we think it's particularly important for renters to know their rights, because the government is not on our side.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for your time. That's a real eye opener. Thank you for your time this afternoon. I appreciate your help.
Yeah, thanks very much.
All right. That's Shannon Franssen. She's the interim coordinator at the Coalition of Housing Committees and Tenants Associations of Quebec. If you are having any difficulty with rent increases or even, God forbid, an eviction notice, there are places you can go in your neighborhood. Just look up the Coalition of Housing Committees and Tenants Associations of Quebec. They can help you find the place to go to get the resources you need.
Introducing Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio. Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
Join me for an insider look on a wild ride through 40 years of global rock and roll.
Bryan Adams Radio. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app. Or ask your smart speaker to play Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio.
Who's ready to rock?
Kids wanna rock.